you ever noticed that the harder you chase sleep, the farther it runs, like a shy animal that only approaches when you stop reaching for it? Have you ever wondered why the quietest nights can still feel loud inside your head, even when the room is perfectly still? Welcome back to the channel. Tonight, I want to guide you through a story about deep sleep and the secret of silence. Not silence as in a perfectly soundproof room. Not silence as in forcing your thoughts to disappear. The silence I mean is deeper than sound. It is the silence that appears when you stop arguing with your own mind, when you stop negotiating with rest, when you stop reading sleep like a performance you must succeed at, and you begin treating sleep like a natural return, the way a wave returns to the ocean when it is done being a wave. This story begins with a man named Daniel, not the dramatic kind of person, not someone who talks about spiritual things at parties, not someone who posts quotes. Daniel was practical. He believed in effort. He believed in solving problems. He believed that if something was broken, you fix it by working harder. That belief helped him build a career. It helped him survive stressful years. It also quietly ruined his sleep. At first, his sleep issues were occasional. A bad night before a big meeting. A restless night after an argument. A few nights of light sleep during a busy season. He told himself it was normal. Then the bad nights started stacking. 2 nights a week became 4. 4 became most nights. Then he started fearing bedtime. That fear was the first real crack. Because when you fear bedtime, you stop associating the bed with rest. You associate the bed with struggle. The bed becomes a stage. You lie down and the mind says, "Here we go again." The moment you hear that sentence inside, the nervous system wakes up. Your body thinks it is being asked to survive something, not surrender into sleep. And that is where the cycle begins. Daniel tried everything. He changed his mattress. He bought blackout curtains. He avoided caffeine. He tried heavy blankets. He tried breathing techniques. He tried guide audio. Some of it helped for a week. Then his mind adapted and the problem returned. The more he tried, the more he felt ashamed. He began telling himself, "I should be able to do this. A grown adult should be able to sleep." That sentence sounds harmless. It is not. It turns a natural body process into a moral judgment. And moral judgment adds tension. Tension is the opposite of sleep. One night, he sat on the edge of his bed at 2 a.m. and felt something close to panic. He had a big day tomorrow. He could already see the exhaustion. He could already feel the brain fog. He could already imagine being irritable, making mistakes, feeling embarrassed, then punishing himself. The mind loves to rehearse suffering in advance, as if rehearsal prevents it. It does not. It multiplies it. Daniel stood up, walked into his living room, and sat on the floor. He did not meditate. He did not pray. He simply sat, exhausted, staring at nothing, and whispered, "What is wrong with me?" That is when he remembered his grandmother. His grandmother had been a quiet woman. She never talked big about spirituality, but she lived with a kind of steady calm that made you feel safe just sitting near her. When Daniel was a child, he once asked her why she could fall asleep so fast. She said something that sounded strange back then. She said, "I do not fight the night." Daniel had laughed as a kid. Fight the night. What does that even mean? Now, sitting on the floor, he understood it in his bones. He had been fighting the night for months. Fighting the night meant fighting silence, fighting thoughts, fighting feelings, fighting uncertainty, fighting the fact that the body is not a machine you can command. The next morning, Daniel went to work like a person walking through water. During lunch, he met his friend Nina, who had a calm presence that felt almost unfair. He told her he had not slept. Again, Nina listened, then asked one question. When you cannot sleep, what do you do? Daniel said, I try to sleep. Nina nodded slowly. That is the problem. You try too hard. Sleep is not a thing you can grab. The harder you grab, the more awake you become. Daniel felt annoyed. He said, So what? I just give up. Nina shook her head. No? You stop forcing. You stop chasing. You stop making war. There is a difference between effort and struggle. Effort is calm. Struggle is panic. Your body can rest with effort. Your body cannot rest with struggle. Daniel asked her what she meant by the secret of silence. Nina said, Let me tell you a story I heard at a small Buddhist talk years ago. It changed how I sleep. Daniel was skeptical, but he was tired enough to listen. Nina said there was a man who went to a teacher and complained that he could not sleep because his mind was too loud. The teacher asked him, When do you hear the loudest noise? The man said, At night, when everything is quiet. The teacher smiled and said, Then the loudness is not outside, it is inside. The man said, So, how do I turn it off? The teacher replied, Do not turn it off. Stop turning it on. Daniel frowned. Nina continued. The teacher explained that the mind becomes loud when you feed it. You feed it with resisting. You feed it with rehearsing. You feed it with bargaining. You feed it with the belief that silence must be controlled. The teacher said, True silence is not the absence of sound. True silence is the absence of grasping. Daniel felt something soften. Nina said, The Buddha would call it non-clinging. You cling to sleep. You cling to tomorrow. You cling to being in control. That clinging becomes tightness. Tightness becomes wakefulness. Daniel asked, What am I supposed to do instead? Nina said, Practice the silence that exists beneath your effort. When you lie down, do not ask for sleep. Ask for rest. Let rest be enough. Sleep will come when conditions are ready. That night, Daniel tried to follow Nina's advice. He did not expect miracles. He just wanted one night of relief. He prepared for bed like usual. Then he noticed something. His whole routine had been built like a ritual of fear. Checking the clock, adjusting the pillow, checking the foam, turning the pillow again, checking the clock again. Each action looked small, but together they were a chant. I am afraid I will not sleep. He changed one thing. He turned the clock away. Then he lay down and did a quiet experiment. Instead of saying, I must sleep now, he said, Let me rest in this breath. At first his mind laughed. Rest in this breath. What does that do? Then worry arrived. Tomorrow will be terrible. He noticed the worry and whispered, planning. Then he returned to the breath. Another thought came. You are wasting time, he whispered, judging. Back to breath. Another thought came. Why am I like this? He whispered, attacking. Back to breath. He did not do this perfectly. He got pulled into stories. He remembered again. He returned. That returning was new. Before, he returned to the clock. He returned to panic. Now he returned to breath. After a while, he noticed something subtle. The thoughts were still present, but they were less sticky. They were like people talking in the distance rather than people shouting in his face. Then a wave of emotion rose. Sadness, not about sleep exactly. Sadness about how tired he had been. Sadness about how hard he had been on himself. Sadness about how long he had been carrying stress without admitting it. His eyes filled with tears in the dark. His old self would have panicked. Crying means I am more awake. Now, I will never sleep. But the new practice was different. He allowed the tears. He whispered, feeling. He breathed. He did not demand the feeling stop. He let it pass through. That is the secret of silence most people do not understand. Silence is not the absence of experience. Silence is the mind no longer fighting experience. At some point, Daniel fell asleep. He did not even notice the moment. He simply crossed the invisible line from thinking to dreaming. The way you cross into a room when you stop staring at the doorway. He woke up in the morning surprised. He did not sleep perfectly, but he slept enough. And something else changed. He felt less afraid of the night. For the next week he kept practicing. Some nights were better. Some nights were still difficult. But the relationship changed. When he woke at 3 a.m., he no longer attacked himself. He no longer grabbed the phone. He no longer stared at the clock like it was a judge. He returned to breath. He returned to rest. He started noticing that deep sleep had less to do with the night and more to do with the day. During the day, Daniel lied like he was running from silence. He filled every gap with content. He listened to podcasts while driving, music while showering, videos while eating. He thought he was relaxing. He was actually training his mind to fear stillness. Then at night, when stillness arrived, his mind rebelled like a child who never learned how to sit quietly. So he introduced small silences in the day, not long meditations, not dramatic retreats, small silences, 3 minutes after lunch where he did nothing but feel his breath, a short walk without headphones, 5 quiet breaths before opening his email. The goal was not to become a monk. The goal was to teach his nervous system that silence is safe. This is very Buddhist, even if it sounds ordinary. The mind becomes what it repeats. If you repeat stimulation, your mind needs stimulation. If you repeat silence, your mind can rest in silence. Karma is repetition. Liberation is also repetition. Then another layer appeared. Daniel realized his worst nights often followed days when he swallowed emotions. If he avoided a difficult conversation, he paid at night with mental rehearsal. If he felt angry but pretended he was fine, his mind replayed the anger in bed. If he felt hurt but acted tough, the hurt showed up at 2 a.m. as anxiety. The night was not random. The night was honest. The night revealed what he postponed. So Daniel began practicing truthful living in small ways. He told a co-worker, "I cannot take on that extra task." He told a friend, "That joke bothered me." He told his partner, "I am stressed and I do not want to pretend." Each truth was like removing a stone from a backpack. With fewer stones, the body could relax more easily at night. Deep sleep, he learned, is not only a sleep technique, it is a way of living that reduces inner conflict. And that is where silence becomes spiritual. Silence is not only quiet sound. Silence is the mind no longer split into 2 armies, one trying to look strong and one feeling terrified. Silence is the mind no longer performing. Silence is the end of inner violence. One evening, Daniel met Nina again and thanked her. Nina smiled and said, "You did the work. The teaching is simple. The practice is hard." Daniel asked, "What would the Buddha say about sleep?" Nina said, "The Buddha would not treat sleep as a luxury. He would treat rest as part of right effort. Right effort is not forcing. Right effort is wise energy. Too much effort becomes agitation. Too little effort becomes dullness. The middle path is steady. You prepare conditions. You release clinging. You let the body do what it knows." Daniel laughed softly. That sounded like life advice, not sleep advice. Nina nodded. Exactly. Sleep is a mirror. It shows you how you relate to life. If you relate to life with grasping, the mind grasps at night. If you relate to life with resistance, the mind resists at night. If you relate to life with compassion, the mind softens at night. That conversation stayed with Daniel, and he started seeing other people differently too. He noticed how many friends were suffering from the same pattern. They were not broken. They were overloaded. They were constantly performing. They were constantly chasing productivity. They were constantly feeding the mind with fear content. Then they expected the mind to become peaceful on command at bedtime. It is like whipping a horse all day and then asking it to stand perfectly still when you finally sit down. One friend told Daniel, "I just need the perfect guided sleep audio." Daniel said, "Audio can help, but do not let it become a new form of chasing. Use it like a boat, not like a destination. The destination is the mind learning to rest without gripping." His friend asked, "What do you mean by the secret of silence?" Daniel replied, "Silence is the space where you stop interfering. You stop stirring the water. Then the water clears on its own." That was the clearest way he could explain it. He had learned it through suffering, not theory. Now I want to bring this directly to you, because you might be listening at night, tired, maybe frustrated, maybe even scared. If you want deep sleep, start by releasing the demand for deep sleep. That sounds backwards, but it is the most direct truth. Prepare your space. Make it dim. Make it cool enough. Remove what overstimulates you. Then do the inner part. When thoughts come, do not argue. Label gently. Thinking, planning, remembering, judging. Then return to one simple anchor. Breath, weight of the blanket, sound of the room, the feeling of the pillow. When emotion comes, do not punish it. Allow it. Breathe. Let it pass. When you wake in the middle of the night, do not treat it like failure. Treat it like another moment of practice. Rest is still available. Even if sleep is slow, you can reduce suffering by ending the fight. This is detachment, not detachment from life. Detachment from the clinging that tightens the body. This is karma, not destiny. Training, repetition, cause and effect. If you train your mind to fight, it fights. If you train your mind to soften, it softens. And here is the most compassionate truth. If you have not slept well for a long time, your nervous system might be exhausted and sensitive. Be gentle with it. Do not demand instant transformation. A tired system heals through consistent kindness, not through pressure. Daniel learned that too. On nights when he slipped back into old habits, he stopped turning that into shame. He simply returned. Returning is the path. He also learned one more thing, maybe the most important. The secret of silence is not something you achieve once. It is something you remember again and again. You remember it when you stop checking the clock. You remember it when you stop bargaining with tomorrow. You remember it when you stop trying to win sleep. You remember it when you breathe and let the body be a body. You remember it when you stop fighting the night. That is why guided deep sleep experiences can be helpful, not because a voice hypnotizes you, but because the guidance reminds you to stop interfering. It reminds you to return. It reminds you to soften. But the real guide is your own awareness. The real teacher is your willingness to let go. Thank you for spending this time with me. If you have been struggling with sleep, share what your nights feel like and what you have tried. If you have found a practice that helped you stop fighting, share it too. Someone reading might finally realize they are not defective. They are just stuck in a pattern that can change. Closing words: may your mind learn to rest without gripping. May your heart learn to soften without fear. May you discover the silence beneath your thoughts. And may that silence carry you into deeper sleep, one gentle breath at a time. Remember to subscribe, like, and stay with the channel, because the next story might be the one that helps you stop chasing peace and start allowing it.